Hi there. So today we're going to talk about professionalism. We are going to talk about it as far as it relates to a school system. So a district where special education students are serviced and along with general education students. We're going to talk about professionalism in many different aspects. But the most important aspect we're going to talk about is helping students to achieve their full potential. My name is Kimberly Baker. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the behavior analyst that works specifically with the middle school at Burlington Township. I have had experience in all 4 schools, and for the last 2 years, I've been housed in the middle school. So let's get started. For an introduction, a special education teacher assistant is one who is assigned to assist and support a teacher but does not assume the primary responsibility for the classroom. The person possesses a commitment to the betterment of education and a desire to work and understand children with special needs in particular. So I know that some of you who are tuned in today are working as IAs. So for some of you, you are also doing office and clerical work. You're also helping students who come into the special education office. You're also helping students who come into offices like the counseling offices or the main offices, or sometimes you're going in and you're sitting in for a teacher or doing different things like that. I know in the middle school, a lot of our instructional assistants also go in and do ISS duty and different things like that. So we cover a wide range, but specifically today we're going to be talking about when you work with children with special needs. So this also includes our teacher assistants who work in our ICR classrooms, our POR classrooms, and our students who have one-to-ones, and you work with them on a one-to-one basis. But remember always that we're broadening these respects too, as we talk about general education students and just how we interact with each other in general. So being a special education teacher assistant makes it possible for the teacher to be more effective, to utilize his or her abilities and professional knowledge. It's the teacher's responsibility to make sure that the students are moving toward achieving those individual goals and objectives specifically lined out in their IEP. So that's an important thing to remember as well. The special education teacher assistant, or aide, as sometimes they're called as well, the job of the special education teacher assistant is to enhance the instructional programs for students with disabilities. The teacher assistant is under the direct supervision of the building administrator and the special education teacher, and also, of course, your supervisor with whatever company that you work with, whether that's ESS or Brettanovi or whatever company that you're with. The teacher assistant supports the teacher, the special ed or regular ed teacher, depending on which classroom that you're in providing instruction, and also performs duties which free the teacher to work with those students who are needing more help. Many of the duties performed by the teacher assistant are similar to those performed by the teacher. Because the teacher assistant works only under the direction of the teacher diagnoses and prescribes the learning needs of the students. The teacher functions in a leadership role and carries out the primary responsibility of implementing the student's individual education plan. So that's that IEP that you're always hearing about. In turn, the teacher assistant may be assigned duties or activities which foster the implementation of various portions of the student's IEP. So those are those modifications and accommodations that you're always hearing about. So those are things that you may be assigned to do or you may be asked to do as far as providing them with different things that they need in order to access their education or access that curriculum. That's where your role lies as well. Always remember the following. We are and serve together as part of a team. So that team consists of you, that team consists of the teacher, that team consists of administrators, case managers, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, your secretaries. We are all part of a team. We are human and we all make mistakes. So there are times where you'll make a mistake. There's times where your teachers make mistakes. There's times where we'll make mistakes as behavior specialists. But it's okay to ask for help. That's the main thing. Don't ever be afraid to ask for help. And sometimes you'll be asked for help as well. So that goes both ways. I know a lot of teachers who have tremendous respect and tremendous relationships with their teacher assistants. And it is really a beautiful thing when we're all able to work together as a team for the betterment of our students. Communication is key to that. Work to keep the lines of communication open. Ask questions if you're unclear of the expectations. Education is a professional career, so it's important to act professional all the time. Ethical considerations for teachers' assistants. As an integral part of the educational system, teacher assistants have a commitment to maintain the ethical standards of behavior in their relationships with students, parents, supervising teachers, and school personnel. So now we're going to kind of get into the ethics of it. And this is extremely important, and this is why we're going over this today. We need to make sure that we protect the rights of students and parents. Teachers' assistants may be aware of and practice these appropriate ethical behaviors. You must always maintain confidentiality. I cannot stress that enough. We, as behavior specialists, as teachers, as special education teachers, through the CST, we have to go through trainings all of the time about confidentiality, about ethics. We have to be recertified every few years as special education teachers, as behavior specialists, as learning consultants. We all have to go through recertifications, and part of those recertifications include ethics and things like maintaining confidentiality, because it's the law and because it's so important, and because if any of us breach this confidentiality, we could also lose our jobs as well. So it is something that is utmost importance in protecting the privacy and the dignity of these students that we service. So this means when you're out at Walmart and you're, with your sister, or you're out at Walmart with your husband, or you're out at Walmart with your wife, or you're out at Walmart with whoever you're with, and you want to mention the student in your classroom who had a fit that day, or you want to mention the student in your classroom who had a great day, or, either way, it doesn't always have to be something negative. But if you mention somebody in your classroom, and especially if you mention them by name, you are breaching that confidentiality, and you don't know who's behind you. You don't know who's in front of you, who could overhear that conversation. And it's illegal. So you have to maintain that confidentiality. There are different things that we sometimes do, like if there's a problem with a student, or if there's an issue that you have to bring up, we have certain people that you can go to about that. So if you're talking with your teacher, and we'll get into that in a little bit, if you're talking with your teacher about a problem with the student, that's okay. It's not like you can't talk to anybody about the student, but you can't just talk to, your mom or your sister or whoever about the students in your classroom in specific, especially when it comes to special education students. That's just the law. If you have any other questions about confidentiality, please go to any case manager, go to any special education teacher, come to any of the behavior specialists, and we will gladly tell you exactly what you can say, what you can't say. I don't have a lot of time to go into it right now, but it's extremely important. We want you to keep your jobs. We want to keep our jobs too. So that's one of the reasons why we have to go through training every year on it. Teacher assistants must be, they also demonstrate honesty, loyalty, dependability, cooperation, accountability, and a willingness to learn. The following is suggested code of ethics for teacher assistants. So accepting responsibilities. Engage only in instructional and non-instructional activities for which you're qualified or trained to do. So when we talk about, are you qualified and trained in LLI? Are you trained in iReady? Are you trained in all the different things that we do in the classroom to help our students? We have a reading group, or we have this group or that group. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've had to have some formal training in this, curriculum that you're that you're having or that you're doing. Some of the curriculums, some of the interventions that we have do have to have formal training and do have to have a certification, and those are handled a separate way. But different ones like LLI and stuff, if your teacher has walked you through it and you feel confident about it, those are things that you can help your students with. If you have an LLI group or different things like that your teacher has already trained you on, those are fine. Or the iReady program, the teachers trained you on that. CPI is another one that comes up when we talk about this. If there is a student who is having a rough time in the middle of the hallway and they call for CPI and you're there, if you have a blue badge and you are fully certified in CPI, then you can go in and you can help the situation, and you can go hands-on. If you do not, you may not. So that's another one, and that again, those things are to protect you as well as to protect the student. So only the things that you're qualified or trained on or certified in. Do not communicate progress or concerns about students to parents. That is another one of those lines that we can't cross. So if you have a concern about the student's progress or anything like that, to communicate to the parent, please go to your teacher about that and let your teacher communicate that to the parent. That is to protect you, believe me. Refer concerns expressed by parents, students, or others to the supervising teacher. So again, it's both ways. So there are times where you'll, be going out to pick up the student in the morning. Mom drops off and says, "Oh my goodness, he got up so late this morning. He didn't eat breakfast and he's been really grumpy and grouchy," and all of that. That information goes straight to the supervising teacher, straight to your morning teacher. And if there's, things that happen during the day and you're bringing that child to parent at the end of the day and the parent says, "Oh my goodness, it looks rough. What happened today?" You have to maintain, and you need to just say, "Hey, there's notes in his backpack about our day today. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow." Or, just maintain, we had a good day today, or just, don't say anything at all. Just like Peter Rabbit. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. So a lot of times that happens because there's so much with miscommunication. And when we bring these things up to you, and these are code of ethics and things that have been passed down to us, and we've seen it again and again and again, that there are problems that come up when we have our way of thinking about how things happen, and then things get communicated, and then things get back to us. A lot of times parents hear things incorrectly, and it gets back to the teacher that you said something that you actually didn't say. And that happens with us as well. So it's to protect you as well. So recognize the teacher has ultimate responsibility for instruction and management, and to follow the prescribed directions. Help to see the best interest of individual students and that they're met. So another code of ethics is accepting responsibility. So avoid cell phone use. We all realize that there are emergencies. So there are times where, your son is going to call, there's an emergency, or your kid's school is going to call, your mom's going to call, somebody's going to call with an emergency. Please step out in the hallway, take that cell phone call. But we have had times where students see someone on a cell phone, or, teacher needs some assistance and that person is on their cell phone. Please have your cell phone stored and put away while you're at work. Please don't take them out, when you're in the middle of class, or when you're, supposed to be with your student. Usually you have breaks throughout the day where you can do those kind of things. Just please respect that rule. We've had a lot of issues and a lot of trouble with that have been reported. So we're just reiterating that again. Respect and follow the codes of dress for your district. Be on time to work, record accurate attendance, and represent the educational agency in the community. Refrain from expressing negative opinions of the program or agency. So those are some of the ethical responsibilities that We have a staff at the middle school. We have a staff across the district. And so since we work together as a team, it's ethical responsibilities for you guys as well. Relationships with students and parents. Discuss a child's progress, limitations, and educational program only with the teacher in the appropriate setting. So you may not, again, this goes back to confidentiality, you may not be walking down the hallway with your teacher and discussing your student's progress. God forbid another student overhears that you're talking about Johnny and how he did not do okay with his toileting program that morning. And now Johnny has to go to gym with that kid that you just walked down the hallway with. So those are the kind of things that you have to be so mindful of. So when you're in the classroom, you're alone with the teacher, and you need to discuss that student's progress, that's the perfect time to do it. Or if you're, in the faculty room with that teacher alone, that's the perfect time to discuss, or, up with the case manager, or different things like that. But in the appropriate setting, discuss issues and confidential matters only with the appropriate personnel, and never discuss student progress or difficulties with the parent. Again, we go back to that. Sometimes we reiterate these things because they're so important. Do not engage in discriminatory practices based on students' disability, race, sex, cultural background, or religion. And a lot of times we just sweep by that one because we're like, we never do that. We're a school. Public school, we don't do those kind of things. Yeah. And so we just race past that one. But I think it's important to remember that we have to kind of always check ourselves, because we have to remind ourselves that it's easy to let those things seep through. Again, we have to go through training all the time about not allowing those things to happen, not allowing those discriminatory practices to come into play. So say you have your student is in a wheelchair and you're out at recess and a bunch of kids want to get together to play basketball, and you say, I'm just going to move him out of the way because he's going to be in the way. And that's a discriminatory practice right there. So instead you would say, Johnny, I've got to rename something. Johnny, do you want to play basketball? Do you want me to help you play basketball? How do we want to do this, buddy? Instead of assuming that he wouldn't want to be part of it, or assuming the other kids wouldn't want him to be part of it. Another one that comes up sometimes is religion, where they might be having a Christmas thing or something like that, and you say, oh well, my kid is Jewish, so I'm going to take him somewhere else for this. A lot of Jewish people celebrate Christmas as well. It's different things like that that we kind of put into our minds, and we think that we're protecting the child, or we think that we're helping them. Oh, I don't want him to be embarrassed, or I don't want him to be or her to be, neglected, or I don't want them to be put in a position. So we go and do something thinking that we're helping, or thinking that we're, making it better. Where actually we're discriminating. So that's what I'm saying about this one. We really have to be careful when we're not realizing that we're actually engaging in a discriminatory practice. So just kind of, that's maybe something to Google and to look up, ways that we may engage in discriminatory practices and not realize it, or biases that we don't realize that we have. That's another good one that we could look up. Respect the dignity and privacy and individuality of all students, parents, and staff members. So there we go into all staff members instead of just our students, which we're focusing on in this presentation. We also want that for all parents and staff members as well. Serve as a positive role model for students in personal interactions and communication. So a lot of times we let the stress, anxiety, and interpersonal relationships and things get the better of us. And I think we all have to remember, myself included, that the kids are looking at us as role models. And it's important that we show them how they need to act, and we need to make sure that we model appropriate behavior for them, especially when it is in regard to communication with each other and communication with them, and how we conduct ourselves, especially while we're at work as professionals. Relationship with the teacher, establish that communication and positive relationship with the teacher and establish that early. Recognize that the supervising teacher has ultimate responsibility for instruction and behavior management of the children. Follow the directions prescribed by him or her. So the supervising teacher has ultimate responsibility for the students in that classroom. So they're the ones who, lay out what the classroom responsibilities are, what the classroom expectations are, and they have that ultimate responsibility. And for the behavior management, even for those of you who have one-to-one students, eventually for every student, we would like them to eventually not need a one-to-one. You've heard us say it multiple times before that the best one-to-one works themselves out of a job. So what we would like to happen is for that student to always hear that direction from the teacher first and respond to that. That's your best case scenario. So that's why we're putting the emphasis on the teacher having ultimate responsibility for instruction, because the best scenario is for them to respond to that teacher's direction and to that teacher's instruction. Discuss concerns about the teacher or teaching methods directly with the teacher. So if you don't understand something, or if you are thinking that it doesn't vibe with the behavior plan, say you have a behavior plan for your one-to-one student and the teacher has done something that you feel like violates or feel like doesn't jive with the behavior plan, to the teacher and say, I'm sorry, but here's the way that I'm reading the behavior plan. Can you explain to me how, as going forward, what you need me to do or whatever. Make sure that you go to the teacher first with that, and then go to the behavior specialist and make sure that everything coincides. Remember always that we work as a team. Express differences of opinion with the teacher only when the students are absent from the room. So remember, if you're going to go to the teacher and say, hey, I don't understand why you did this. I don't understand why you showed that slide on blue. I think it looks better on pink, whatever. You're going to go to the teacher only when the students are absent from the room. Please don't ever correct the teacher when the students are in the room, because that shows a level of disrespect as well. And you wouldn't want that from the teacher as well while you're in the room. So that respect, that communication needs to be there. When problems can't be resolved, please speak with the building administrator or direct supervisor. Like I said before, if it's a problem where you feel like the teacher is doing something that's the opposite or doing something that's against what the behavior plan specifically says, please go to the behavior specialist and discuss it with them, and then you can work something out with the teacher and the behavior specialist. But if there's something that's a problem that you feel like can't be resolved, it's an interrelationship problem or something like that, please speak with the building administrator or your direct supervisor with the company that you work with. Do's and don'ts for teachers' assistants. Teacher assistants you may be left alone in the classroom when the teacher needs to step out. There's times where a teacher might need to go to the bathroom, at times where a teacher might need to go and run an errand or do something like that. You can be left alone in the classroom for a short period of time as long as you are not teaching new concepts. You can work with individuals or groups of students on concepts that have been introduced by the teacher. You can have specific instructional and management responsibility for working with an individual student. You can be assigned record keeping or data collection tasks relevant to the goals and objectives in the student's IEP or behavior plan. Teacher assistants may not be used as a substitute when the teacher is ill. So if your teacher is ill and they have gone home for the day, you cannot be used as a substitute teacher for the rest of the day. I don't know if they, have teacher certifications, and if, there's certain people who can be used as a teacher who have teacher certs. I believe some of our instructional assistants also have teacher certifications and do go into substitute for teachers. But I'm talking specifically here about teacher assistants who are our one-to-ones and teacher assistants in the classroom. So I just want to put that out there so that you know that if that ever happens, you need to call to the office and have a substitute teacher come down to your room. You may not teach new concepts or skills. So if the teacher ever, which I can't imagine this happening, but if the teacher ever says, we're going to move on to chapter 3, and I'm going to go out of the room for 3 hours, and Miss Smith is going to teach you chapter 3, that can't happen. You can't teach new concepts or skills, but you can reteach them and you can go over them. You cannot be primarily responsible for these students. So you can't say, I'm going to take their IEPs and I'm going to put in their goals and I'm going to, and I'm going to run the classroom and the teacher's just going to sit back there and do whatever she wants to do. That can't happen. And carry out clerical duties usually assigned to secretaries. And again, we do have some IAs and that's what their job description is. But specifically right now, I'm talking about teacher assistants who are assigned to the classroom. Now, sometimes you're going to go and make copies for your teacher. And if you're a teacher assistant who's in a classroom, that's okay. But we're talking about on a full-time basis. So you're not going to be out making copies for the entire class. You're not going to be out, cutting things, pasting things, and doing things like that for the entire class while the teacher's doing something else and not helping kids. Your primary responsibility is helping the students in the classroom. Okay, so we're talking about clerical duties that are usually assigned to secretaries. So filing the IEPs and doing different things like that. That's not what you're going to be assigned to do. Do's and don'ts continued. You're going to be sometimes responsible to take the kids outside and play with them during recess and do different things like that. But you're not going to take full responsibility for supervising and teaching activities outside the classroom. So in other words, you're not going to teach the art class or the gym class or different things like that. We want you to cultivate a good relationship with your teacher, behavior specialist, case manager. Again, we said that before. And making a difference in a child's life can be rewarding and fun. So we're going to talk about the roles and responsibilities a little bit. The role of a teacher assistant is multifaceted. The teacher's assistant's primary focus should be to provide a better learning opportunity for students with disabilities. Depending on the level of the student's disability, the age, and the type of classroom the students decide, your roles are going to vary. And we talked about that a little bit before, that we have some of you that are one-to-ones, some of you are in the ICR classrooms, some of you in PR classrooms, and some of you who are instructional assistants, and your roles are everywhere. So for instructional support, so some of your roles there are going to be to reinforce and review concepts and skills, assist students in activities initiated by the supervising teacher, carry out the instructional program as planned by the supervising teacher. You may modify written materials as needed to meet the student's needs, monitor and check student work, assist student with self-help needs like grooming and toileting and different things like that. Assist a small group of students or an individual student in a particular task planned and assigned for by the teacher, or assist with testing modifications. For instructional support, again, you may assist students in writing dictated stories, computer-assisted instruction, general education setting. You might have to assist them with specials, library, cafeteria, classroom, recess. You may have to go with them to those settings and assist in those things. I know a lot of times for gym and different things like that, we have some of our students who may need some assistance there. And you may have the OT or PT come to gym and kind of show you how to assist them with the stretches, or show you how to assist them with modifications for playing basketball, or modifications for playing bowling, or different things like that that they might need in gym. So you'll be instructed on how to assist if they need it in computer class or in PE or in different things like that. Work with the students in their mainstream regular education classes, reinforce students' goals and objectives as written in the IEP, assist with lifting and positioning students, accommodate for individual students' learning needs, following daily work schedules, the student's work schedule. So you may need to sometimes make a visual schedule for that student, or just follow them with their schedule that they have for the day. Organizational support. Sometimes you're called on to meet the students upon arrival. Sometimes you meet them at their homeroom. Help loading and unloading the student onto the bus. At times we have those, the special needs buses, and some of our students who do not ambulate well need help getting on and off the buses. You may be required to do that. Assist with lunch or recess, assisting students in their environmental setting with the restroom, with library. Accompany students with physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech. The physical therapist, occupational therapist, and speech pathologist will let you know if they need you to stay and observe and to help with that therapy, or if you can go during that time. So just kind of look to them to see which. It's always beneficial if you're able to stay and if you're able to watch how they work with them, so that you can kind of carry that over, because most of our kids will get speech OT or PT, once a 6-day cycle, twice a 6-day cycle. But if you're there when they're doing speech, if this is something that the speech pathologist, desires and thinks is beneficial for the student, then you can kind of carry over those lessons into, their daily routine. So that always works well too. Help students prepare for dismissal, get materials ready for activities, preparing, cleaning up classroom activities, collecting completed work, prepare and arrange the room for the teacher, making visual aids, organizing supplies in the classroom. So all of those kind of things are things that the teacher does as well. So when we talked a while before about you guys being a lot like the teacher, it's true. We work together as a team, and so we do team activities. So making visual aids, organizing supplies in the classroom, those are not secretarial duties, those are teacher duties. So you'll be doing duties like that as just like the teacher would be. Behavioral management support. So a lot of you have been called on to be with kids who need behavioral management support. So you are going to be called on sometimes to observe and record behavior, give that positive reinforcement, provide close supervision. All of those things will be in that behavior plan. So you want to really, really look that over, really make sure that you know it. If you do not know that behavior plan, then please come to your behavior specialist, ask for clarification. If the teacher is well versed on the behavior plan, you can always go to your teacher first, since they're with that student all the time in the classroom. Ask them about the behavior plan and how they, are able to follow it through. But definitely come to your behavior specialist and ask about that behavior plan. Circulate in the classroom to provide support where needed. If your student is having a great day and they're doing fine, definitely circulate in that classroom. Enforce class and school rules with your student as well. Assist students with organizational skills if they need it. A lot of times our behavior kids also have executive functioning issues, which are issues of where they lack those organizational skills. So they forget things. I forgot my pencil. I forgot my book. They forget to bring things home at the end of the day to do their homework. Motivating students is an important part of that as well. We're always, always, always helping students to become independent learners. Assist in implementing the behavior plan as set up by the behavior specialist according to the IEP. Assist with data keeping and recording. Supervise student in an alternative setting. So, and for general support, sort and file the student data records. There's times where, and what that means by sort and file the student data records is if you're helping the teacher with LLI, you may have to put those records back when you guys are done doing LLI or different things like that. Or if you're taking data on a student that you have a behavior plan with, and you need to take that data and put it in the mailbox of the behavior specialist at the end of the day. Or there are times where if you do have times where you don't have your student during the day and you have extra time, that you can actually put that data into record it on the computer that is also beneficial. So when I say sort and file, I'm not talking again about a secretarial duty. I'm talking about the duties that a teacher would normally do. Help with the preparation of educational materials, assist with assemblies, assist on field trips, provide safe school environment for students, and assisting with mobility needs. That's some things on general support. Interpersonal relationships, make sure that you're communicating with your supervising teacher. Again, I know we're repeating, but we're going back to this again. Discuss expectations and work habits from the beginning. So it's important to go to your teacher right away and say, I want to start off on the right foot. I want to know what you need me to do, what you're expecting from me. And I want to let you know kind of how I work and how I roll, so that you're starting off with open communication. The goal is for the teacher assistant and the supervising teacher to work as partners, sharing responsibilities to ensure all students have a successful experience. Accept supervision, be flexible, and cooperate with change. That is just something for life. So we all have to accept sometimes when we're told that we're doing something, not quite the right way, or not quite the way that our supervisor needs it done. So if the teacher comes to you and says, I can't have you at the front of the room, I need you at the back of the room, don't take offense to that. This is their classroom, and they are the supervisor in the classroom. There have been times where I've come in to do an observation and a teacher has said to me, I need you to be over here instead of over here. I can't take offense to that. I'm coming into their classroom, and they need to be able to tell me what's comfortable for them so that they can teach to their utmost ability. Understand that the schedule will and can be changed to meet the needs of students. Treat all persons with respect and maintain positive interpersonal relationships. There are so many times throughout the year, and again, I can't emphasize this enough, that your job is to make these students independent. And we have had, and I know that Morgan and Sarah Cox and Morgan Husef, and now she changed her name because she just got married, but they would both completely 100% agree that the best one-to-ones that we have that are working directly with our students are never out of a job, because they've made and created a path for their student to become independent. That is the best thing that you can do. So we have a lot of times where we may have to move you, the district may have to move you to somewhere else, or ESS even moves people sometimes. And those are things that are not controllable for us. If we ever feel like you need to move, it's because your student is usually doing better. Or sometimes there's times where we have to be moved because the interpersonal isn't working out very well. The student isn't responding to us for some reason. We're not motivating to them, or we're not positive reinforcement for them. And we kind of have to check our ego at the door and make sure that we are here for the students and we want them to succeed, and we'll do anything to help them to succeed. So if that means that sometimes we have to step away, that's okay too. But the most important thing is for them to become independent. So sometimes that means us moving on to another student so that they can become more independent. If for any reason, again, you can't resolve those difficulties with your supervising teacher, it's important to follow the chain of command, to follow grievance procedures outlined by the school district. Integration and inclusion, that's just something I want to touch on as we close out here a little bit. The use of teacher assistants is increasing. The duties are becoming more complex and challenging as schools seek to meet state mandates for inclusion services and integration of students with disabilities. So that's another one of the reasons why you guys are here. The term inclusion, integration, and mainstreaming are often confused, but they are not synonymous. Mainstreaming refers to the selective placement of students receiving special education services into one or more education classes. Mainstreaming proponents generally assume that a student must earn his or her opportunity to be mainstreamed through the ability to keep up with the work assigned by the teacher to the typical students in the classroom. This concept is closely linked to the traditional forms of special education service delivery. That's not what we're talking about here. Inclusion and integration refer to the commitment that every child belongs to the entire school community, regardless of labels. Inclusion and integration indicate a wholehearted commitment to educate each student to the maximum extent appropriate in the school and classroom that they would not normally attend if they were not receiving special education support. So we have to remember that inclusion and integration for our students is extremely important. Being a part of their neighborhood school and classroom and community is a basic educational right for all students and is an essential element for students with disabilities. We need to support students. They're brought to the child there rather than the child moving to the services. This requires only that the child benefit socially, emotionally, or educationally from being a part of the class. It does not require that the student keep up with the other students in the classroom. So a lot of times when our students are out at specials with the other general education students, you may hear from the teacher, well, this kid is not able to keep up with this curriculum, or they are not. The fact that they can't keep up is not the important part. The important part is that they're there, they're exposed to that general education curriculum, and they're also exposed to their general education peers. So the exposure really is what's most important for these students. For students with disabilities to be successfully included or integrated, appropriate levels of support must be supplied. So that's where you come in and you are able to go in there with them and you're able to help them along as much as they are able to and as much as is possible for them to enjoy and to have the benefits of being integrated with their general education peers. Determining what supports are needed becomes the responsibility of the educational student's educational support team. The team consists of the parent, classroom teacher, special educator, therapists, case managers, and the paraprofessional. So you come into a really important role there when they are struggling in computer class because their fingers can't type the keys because of their physical disability, or when they're, in gym class and they are, they've lost their motivation and they don't want to get dressed anymore, or they, are in theater class and they don't want to participate because they can't do the beginning warm-up activity. Different things like that come up. That's where you come in and you take that to your classroom teacher and you're able to talk with them about it, talk through it, talk with the case manager about that, talk about different different things that you can do to help that student in that situation. Whether the student is being included or integrated, it's important that the teacher assistant remember when supporting the student instructionally, the student is to participate and interact with the regular education peers to the fullest extent possible. That's what integration and inclusion are all about. Regular classroom assistance or assignments may need modifications to allow the student to be successful. When they are in those specials, the specials teachers still have to follow the IEP. So those modifications are still needing to be followed even though they're in the general education classes. In special classes, the teacher assistant needs to help instruct and teach activities. An example might be in PE class, the teacher assistant would make sure that the student understands the rules and concepts of the activity so that the student can participate as fully as possible. The teacher assistant can walk the student through the PE activity until it's understood. In art class, the teacher assistant may need to suggest modifications to make it fit the student's needs, the abilities, for example, in the area of fine motor skills. So that's another thing to remember. Yes, the specials teachers need to follow the IEPs of these students, but we have to also remember that the specials teachers have many more students than our special education teacher has or our teacher in the classroom has. And so for them to keep track of which student has which modifications and different things like that, sometimes it can be difficult for them. So we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes you might be in art class and you might say, oh, well, remember, my student has a really hard time holding a pencil, so I brought his special pencil with him, or I bought his chunky crayons with him because he has a hard time holding the small crayons. Different things like that can be be really, really helpful. And I know the specials teachers are very, very grateful when you guys are there and when you're helping. So just the last slide here, I just want to thank you all so much for all that you do for our kids. It does not go unnoticed. It does not go unappreciated. You know how much I appreciate everything that you do. Morgan and Sarah and I, all three of us, and the entire district thanks you so much for all that you do. And it was great being here with you today. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your time. Thank you so much.